Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Wes Seiler here with Preserve Navarre. I've got Carmen Reynolds with me. We are going live, so waiting for people to join in so we can get a sound check. I'll give it a couple minutes for people to join in. All right, looks like we got 3 or 4 folks that have joined already. Hey, for those folks that are joining, there's Nancy. She says we are good. So that's great. We'll take a minute here and kind of let people join in so we can talk. Carmen Reynolds is a very dear friend of mine, someone I've known now for a few years, and you're involved in so many things. I can never keep track of it in my head. So I know you're involved in what we're doing with Preserve Navarre. I know you're involved across the beach with the Turtle Center. I know you're involved. You're helping CORE and Angie Carter, involved in the Republican Party. You're involved in the water system, which we're going to talk about a lot today. What am I missing? Because I feel like there's probably 20 other things.
Uh, Water quality
Water
issues.
quality, yep.
We just had our state representative introduce his first bill from his new office in Navarre.
Recall Florida.
Recall
Oh my
Florida.
gosh, how can I forget that?
House Joint
so
Resolution
amazing.
131, and I understand that he has submitted the implementing bill. We don't have a number for that yet,
Okay.
but we're very, very, very excited about that.
So there's so many parts of that I love. I love the fact that it was a surprise for you. That was really cool. And Renee was there, and I know Chance got to hear about it and all that stuff. He was shocked. He was like, "Wait, really?" So that was cool that it was a surprise. It was also across the street from my house, so I could like walk over and see my state rep, which is really cool.
And the first state representative from Navarre.
Huge.
So we're very, very excited about that. He's got his ear to the to the uh, uh, to the street, and
Yep.
he's listening to his constituents,
Yeah.
and that is very, very, very important. And that is what the recall bill is about.
Yep.
It's not personal. It's not a vendetta at all. It's just trying to make a statute that's on the books more equitable and apply to the 47 uncovered counties.
Well, and the best part, I mean, there were so many reasons why that was a smart move, what he did. It's something that I think pretty much everybody agrees with. And then you think about J.R. Williamson had put it forward before. So that's pretty cool. It's something that we agree on, right? So it's a way to continue the good parts of J.R.'s legacy and then marry that to what the people of Navarre want him to do. It's a win across the board.
It is,
so
and,
cool.
and a bill doesn't necessarily achieve success
Yeah.
in the first or second year. So
Right.
this may be the year of recall.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so proud of you for that and everything else that you're doing. The big issue now is the water system. So we've got about 30, 45 minutes here to talk about these issues. So feel free to drop some questions, comments, and all that in the chat. We'll get to them. This wasn't a show that we initially planned to do, but talking about it with you all this afternoon, we wanted to get the information out because this election is coming up quick. You and I talked about, well, there's only a few hours left, frankly, at this point before voting starts. I mean, it's a day and a half at this point. So we want to get this information out. We want people to be able to ask questions, and we want to tell everybody what we know and try to figure out what we need to find out as quickly as we can about this process. So let me go through the different questions that we put together. Carmen and I talked about this a few minutes ago. So over the course of the next few minutes, we're going to talk about, first of all, just a quick recap of what is the water system and why does it matter. I've had a lot of people talk to me about this the past couple of days. They say, hey, I'm starting to follow some of the water system stuff. But maybe they've only been in Navarre for a couple years, even 5, 6, 7 years, and they may not have heard much about it. So understanding why this affects you on a daily basis and why this election matters. Then let's talk about how the elections are decided, what their process is, and what we know about that. Then let's get into the specific allegations and what people are saying about proxy voting, ballot harvesting, all that. What we know about it so that you understand what the facts are. And then we'll be honest about what we don't know, because there's a lot of things questions that I've been asking for a while, you've been asking longer than I have, that we still don't have very good answers to. So we'll talk about those. And then we'll talk about the big one, what do we do about it? What can we actually do about this situation? So, and that's why I'm so happy to have you here, is because you were the first person to tell me about the water system. What was that, 3 years ago, I think?
Yes.
You said, hey, Wes, before you do anything with this nonprofit you're starting, we got to talk water system. So tell me, Carmen, from your perspective, what is Holly Navarre water system, and why does it matter to us?
Well, Holly Navarre Water System started in 1970,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a private, nonprofit utility cooperative
Yeah.
that is member owned by
Yeah.
all of us.
Right.
Over 17,000 accounts, and now we have close to 45,000 people in Navarre, and we're down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs here. If you do not have water and food and the basic necessities, you can't survive.
Right.
So, what Holly Navarre Water System provides is potable drinking water
Yep.
and sewer
Right.
availability.
Right.
They have many subsidiaries with their company, and one of them is a engineering firm,
Right.
which is a for-profit underneath them, and then they have the club at Hidden Creek, which is a for-profit that serves to handle the effluent
Right.
that is the byproduct of the wastewater treatment plant
Right.
that is on Pepper Drive. The other part of that is they got so big, along with the other water systems in Midway and South Santa Rosa Utilities and Gulf Breeze, that they had to have a regional utility. So out of that, Fairpoint Regional
Right.
Utility System was created, and they are up here, and they serve to sell water to all of the three
Oh, yeah.
subsidiaries.
Yeah, that is such an important point, real quick, because I have friends in Midway. You've got, obviously, friends in Holly, friends further north. And they say, man, I'm hearing about the Navarre water system. And I even put it there, Navarre Water Board election, but it actually affects even more than Navarre.
Correct,
Right? Yeah,
correct.
It's a regional problem.
And then we don't have our water wells here. Our water wells, we just got done with a big fight years back, as you
Yep.
know, in the East Milton Wellfield Protection District.
Yeah.
And that is a huge area, and it accommodates East Milton's wells
Yep.
and 7 of our wells. So
Yep.
that's where we obtain our water from.
Right.
And it is piped down here to the south,
Right.
as well as those wells, different wells service East
Yeah.
Milton.
And then one important point we got to talk about is the government contract, because you talked about for-profit entities, you talked about not-for-profit, right? Outside the scope of government, this is a private entity, but it's also one with a lifetime government contract, right?
Yes,
A franchise.
a 99-year franchise with the county to provide the water and sewer services in our area.
Right. It's a monopoly. We've experienced that before with waste companies, right? And the controversy there of anytime you have a monopoly on service, you're talking government. Because now you're leaving free enterprise and competition, and now they've got exclusive access to provide water, right?
Exclusive access to provide water, of which the members, like you and me,
Right.
don't have the right to obtain information
Yeah.
that we need. So I
Yeah.
have gone to all of the meetings for years and years and years and tried to be a productive, helpful member,
Yeah.
and have not got the best treatment.
Right.
I don't
Yep.
know if that's because they're triggered by smart, articulate women, or what the problem is, but no matter who goes there, they seem to get the same reception. When some of our members came and asked for a forensic audit, they didn't get a very warm reception. And when you ask, the answer is, no, you can't have this, no, you don't have a right to this. The attorneys that we pay for are basically they are basically the gatekeepers, helping Holly
Yeah.
Navarre Water System prevent us from obtaining information about a system that we own.
That's an important point, because if you walk into Home Depot and you say, hey, tell me all of your financials, they're going to say, no, we don't have to do that, we're a private company. But if you go to the government and say, hey, we're paying your tax bill, tell me what's going on, all of a sudden then you have a records request, right? A freedom of information request. You can figure out different mechanisms because these people work for you, right? And it's interesting how Holly Navarre Water System, they act like they're Home Depot, but Home Depot doesn't have a lifetime government contract to provide lumber, right? Or tools or whatever, right? They do. So they dip into the government stuff whenever it's helpful for monopoly, but then whenever it comes to accountability, no, we're not going to do that. Actually, I want to show you this. So I made a graph here that I want to show everybody, and just kind of makes it very clear as to what we're talking about and why it matters. It's because you have Holly Navarre water system right there in the space, avoiding competition, capitalism, free market enterprise, and then also avoiding government transparency laws. So there, that really to me is the big problem here is why do we continue to have corruption in the system is because all the mechanisms that we've developed for government accountability don't apply to Holly Navarre water system.
And don't apply equally to our county commission, who last year asked them for certain information when they were considering the reletting of the lease, the
Right.
renewal of the lease. And basically, Holly Navarre Water System told them to go pound sand. They weren't going to
Yeah.
release any information, and that was quite embarrassing. I think on its face for the members that actually own this utility. I'm not sure that people out there know that their fees are
Yeah, go into this.
equate to a membership in this and ownership of the system, which should give us certain rights. We've asked for the sunshine law to apply, and they have basically kicked it back and said, oh, that would be disingenuous if even if we could, we wouldn't be able to allow the sunshine law to be applicable to us.
Yeah, right. So they're avoiding all the transparency laws, and then they're avoiding the free market competition of. That's what we do in capitalism. Is we have you. If you don't want to go to this restaurant, you go to the next one, and if another one comes up that's better, everybody goes to that one. And so
But we
the
don't
market
have
chooses.
that
We
option.
don't have that.
We don't have that option.
So-
So you see things like
Yeah.
them talking about rate increases, and you look to yourself and you ask why. I started peeling back the onion. At some point, if you'd like to talk about that, I certainly will. I saw that they were, they said they were being good community stewards, but they were making charitable donations, large ones, to entities, nonprofits in our area, but you can't do that and then pass on rate increases to the people in good faith, I don't think. You can't build a $2 million building without getting 3 bids, which they did, and then it gets extended a whole year. It's inconvenient for the members, and then all of the meetings are then at another place that we are again paying. I was quoted today, somewhere between $600 and $1,500 for an alternate meeting place every time they meet, and at least once a month.
Yeah, and so kind of the last thing here is I really see the water system as the current city government of Navarre. And this is an important, difference that I have, and talk about incorporation and pro versus anti. One of the big differences that I think that I have is they say, well, hey, we don't want a city government because that's going to add another layer of government, right? That's typically the argument they make.
Right.
I see that layer of government as already existing. The water system has $80 million in assets.
87.
Right? $87 million in assets, and that what they have access to. They have all this personnel. They have a CEO. They have a staff. They have all this, and then they're able to really affect local businesses in a big way with the tap fees and the discounts that they give and all these different things.
If they're not standardized,
Right.
absolutely.
So there's
yes.
all this power in this system, and then there's an election process and everything else. And when it's going good, it's great, and when it's not, we're all victims of it. So
And for the people that are really paying attention to the water system, it is a scary thought you've heard government gone wild.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
it.
what scares them
Yeah.
about, and these are separate subjects,
Yeah.
incorporation and the water system. These are totally separate subjects, but I can see why they get a bad flavor.
Yeah, I want to look at this comment. This is great. This is from Richard. He said, Home Depot is a public company, so they are obligated to share their financial info with the SEC. Utilities, by design and operation cost, are monopolies. That's why they are heavily regulated. The problem with Holly Navarre water systems is that they are a unicorn utility being a nonprofit. Because of this, they lack regulation, and the losers are the customers. I couldn't have said it better.
Absolutely,
great,
Richard.
Richard.
And
You got it.
to expand on that,
Yeah.
I will tell you that the county commission seems to have no leverage on them, nor does the public Service Commission in Florida have any say so.
Right.
So they are
got it.
they are cowboys.
And it's your water bill money, and that's, when people talk about tax increases with incorporation or anything else, looking at the water system, you're paying money into that every single month if you're going to have water from them, which you really hard to get it otherwise. So
It's
that's why it matters.
recently come to light that they are over on their personnel costs by about $2 million annually now, and about 15 additional people have been hired. So things are really exponentially increasing, and the bottom line is it's going to impact each and every one of us if we don't pay attention.
And it's hard
get
to
involved.
tell who to believe in the system, because when they're not releasing all the details, you get bits and pieces, right? So it makes it very difficult to see the whole. And I've been to those meetings, and it's really hard to even see the screen, and they flash up numbers real quick and then put them back down. You're like, what was that? And then
They
you ask
give
the
you
question.
no documentation. We were
Stop.
they said it was an open, transparent budget meeting. We were not allowed to ask questions. I tried, and no materials.
Right. Makes it difficult to understand what's going on. But one thing we know a little bit about is the election process. So I put these 3 words on the screen, and if you could help us make sense of this, can you tell me about the 3 different ways to vote at the water system and why this is? We're going to get into some controversy here in a second.
Yes. Well, this has been a conflagration from its inception. Everybody got a letter in the mail, and it seems like everybody who read it had a different interpretation of what that huge paragraph meant. It said that you can vote in person on the 17th, which is Tuesday, from 7 to 7 at Hidden Creek Country Club. The club at Hidden Creek.
Right.
You can vote there. That is probably the best thing that you can do. Or you can go personally by January 6th and request an absentee ballot, and you can then turn that in on the 6th, or the letter advised you that you could turn it in on voting day. But therein lies the confusion. It depends on how you read the sentence.
Right.
And then when you asked for clarification from the staff, they said turn it in by the 6th. So there was a big long line, as I understand, on the 6th, and a lady was going to take her 82-year-old mother up there, who was kind of frail, but there would not have been a way for her to sit or wait in this big long line for people that need assistance and stuff like that. So that is the fallacy with that option. And then there's the proxy, which means you can you had to go and get that document either emailed or pick it up by the 6th, and that allows a person other than yourself to vote how they want for you.
Right.
And that's where I'm going to let you take that
Sure,
explanation away.
Yeah, because I was the one that was asking questions about that during the last meeting that they had, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me why this process even exists. I mean, if you're talking about something very small, maybe like my neighborhood's HOA is all of like 12 people, right? And if somebody can't make a meeting, like, I kind of understand, okay, send a proxy in your place. Maybe the next neighbor down the street votes for you, right? But we're not talking about something small. We're talking about, like we said, $87 million of your money. We're talking about a massive system that affects over 40,000 people, right? This isn't the same deal. And so then you get into, okay, this is much more like a standard election, hence, Tappy from the county being involved, and, all these people, and the decisions that are affected by it. You get into a proxy top process, and it starts to become troubling, especially when we're not talking about one person can't make the meeting, therefore they have someone else. We're talking about dozens, if not more, of votes being cast by a single individual.
And you have some recent information firsthand about that.
I do, and I want to kind of paint the picture here, because when you start getting into actual government work, and that's where this gets weird, is you start getting into this 99-year franchise, which makes Holly Navarre Water System have access to government, powers of exclusion and everything else. It starts to become an issue because there is a long history of proxy voting being a problem. I can think of at least two
Oh,
examples in the past 5 years of cities in Florida where this happened, where you had mayors who came out and said, I'm going to pressure these people to vote for me with proxy votes. And it's this kind of, all right, you are going to hand over your ballot to me, and in exchange, you're going to get a pass. But then if this person doesn't hand it over to me, I'm going to remember that. And once I'm in an office, I'm going to punish you. So people feel compelled to hand over their proxy. That's a problem. The other problem is, how do we get to a place in this country where people can't be trusted to vote? Right? Like, that's crazy to me. Is we live in a country where people get informed. There is more access to information than ever. So being able to figure out who to vote for and not to vote for, you can find information on everybody and then make a decision.
the problem here, though, is I know people are busy raising their children and running back and forth to jobs
Sure.
up and down the highway and sports and this and that. But we're down to the basic needs, food and water here.
Right.
And that is so important that we have clean water and we're able to process and do something with our waste material.
Right.
Okay? This should be a priority, because when those systems go down, if you don't have running water, it is a real issue.
Yeah.
But there's an apathy here that I would really like to change, because so much depends on
Right.
being active and knowledgeable of your system. People need
Yep.
to come to the meetings. They need to
Figure out what's going on.
need to pay attention.
Absolutely.
I see other communities getting involved in community development block grants, where they can, their water system actually advocates for taking those at less than the average income and expanding the water
Yeah.
lines and that type thing. That's not happening.
Right.
That's not happening here, and I've asked for that to occur, but evidently hiring more people and getting new buildings supersede the basic infrastructure issues, and that's an issue.
But what I've heard is numerous people telling me, I want to fix the water system, but they're just going to steal the election anyway. They've got this long history of proxies. That's how they rigged the election. What are we going to do to fix the system when proxies are how they win? And so you can see evidence that is leading us to that conclusion already in this election, because what we have been told is multiple staff members have reported to me that they have seen over 62 proxy votes being cast by a single person. And that's extremely troubling when you have directors who are running for the board, because how many of those proxies are coming
Under
from staff?
duress.
Yeah, how many of them are coming from staff who felt pressured? How many of them are coming because of that person's influence? How do we know that those proxies were delivered in good faith? Is there anything promised in return for them or implied? Is there someone who says, hey, if I don't cast my vote, well, then it's going to be awful for me. I know this person's going to get in and I might get fired, especially when you realize that the board of directors has control over the budget of the system. You and I were at the meeting last time where they just threw out the 2023 budget and said, we'll figure it out.
Right.
And then they started talking about the CEO. We're going to kick out the CEO. When it's that type of chaos where people can be hired and fired and budgets can be thrown out, the last thing you want to do, if this is your job, is to run afoul of those folks.
Performance reports,
we don't know.
awards, travel, training, all of those things.
But
could
we
be
don't
impacted.
know, and that is the problem. And that gets me to, what do we not know? So we know that certain individuals, as reported by staff, are putting in over 62 proxy ballots for themselves, right? We know people are telling us that. We know that there's a problem with this election. We know that people are reporting issues related to proxies. What we don't know is what we just talked about, of how are those proxies being cast? Where are they coming from? Who are they coming from? And is there anything wrong with that process?
Are they even members of
Exactly.
the water system? I mean, not all employees live within Holly Navarre Water Systems area.
And this is where, talking to the supervisor of elections at the county, it starts to get more murky, because when you look at, say, a county election, you look at a state election, you can go to the voters roll and say, this person's registered to vote. Okay, great. You voted, right? You see their political party, you know, all this. TAPI doesn't have access to the member roll. Just because someone may be registered to vote, is that person the same as a person who's a member of the water system. You could, hey, I'm going to pay my water bill, but I'm not going to be registered to vote. Happens all the time with military. We're from a different state. We're obviously a customer in the water system here, but we vote in Georgia or Virginia, wherever we came from, right? So without access to that, how are you going to verify that these proxies were actually cast by real members in good faith? And then people say, well, go back to the staff. The same staff who may be pressured to cast a proxy in the first place, how can we ask the staff to vet this information when they themselves are the people who might be under duress?
Now,
That's the problem.
this proxy system has had an evolution. In the past, they would send you your proxy in the mail in an envelope. And how that got bastardized was those proxies would be commandeered. Say you throw your proxy in the trash, I throw my proxy in the trash. There were folks that were dumpster diving to get all the proxies so that they could accumulate them and fill them out for the person who was the favored son or whatever.
Yeah.
Now that got changed because some people insisted that there was too much graft involved in that, and now we're at the system that we are now, which is still not optimal.
No, not anywhere close. I think the proxy process needs to go entirely. Let's get back to the American way of doing things, which is one person, one vote. You vote. You look at the candidates that are available. You talk to them. They live down the street from you. Call them up, meet them, say, what do you stand for? What are you going to do in the system? How are you going to make it work for me? Are you going to cut my water bills down so it's more manageable? Are you going to be more efficient? Are you going to invest in the right projects? Okay. Good answer, I'll vote for you. Bad answer from this guy, I'm not going to vote for you. And start making decisions the American way, as opposed to whoever can get the most proxies, whoever can grab a whole bunch of people and say, give me your vote, right? It is skipping the very important step of allowing that person to make a decision.
I think if people were aware of what was going on, of what is going on, that they would be incensed enough to move to action and participate and vote. And here's the thing, that there are people being put forth that have never even attended a meeting. How
It's crazy.
They just throw their name out there.
Right.
I haven't seen them in any meetings. They haven't had one question, thought, or idea. How is that going to make them an involved, knowledgeable member of the board? And we definitely need more smarts, enthusiasm, and commitment on that board. That is how we change things.
We had a friend of mine. He initially was very excited about Mike Matthews' campaign. And he said, I'm going to vote for Mike Matthews. Like, I love what you guys are doing. Then some stuff came out about Mike, about his background. He said, hold the phone. I want to think about this. I want to stop my decision here. Tell me about what happened with Mike. Tell me about his history. Tell me about his relationship with his wife. We told everything about it. Here's Mike's number. You can call him. You can call Allison. Talk to him and tell us what you think. He talked to him. He listened to some interviews that he did with Tommy Nichols and with me. And he came around and he said, oh, I get it. I totally understand. This is an amazing story. Also, what he stands for is incredible. I'm on board. I'm going to make that call. I'm going to say, yep, I'm voting for Mike. That's a process that is very respectful of him, right? It's like, hey, man, here's the information. You make your decision if you're comfortable with it. And he could have said, you know what? No, I'm not voting for Mike. Either way, it was his decision to make as he worked through the facts. What if we had used proxies and we sit here and say, hey, man, give me your proxy. I'll figure this out for you. You're not smart enough. I don't trust you enough to be able to figure out who to vote for. Hand me your proxies. I'll fill it out. See you later. Bye. Right? That takes away the important part of voting. The most important part of voting is the responsibility to make the choice yourself. And so this proxy process is really a mess. It needs to go.
It needs to go, but the only way it can go is to get folks that are committed and want to change things to
Agreed.
get on that board.
Agreed.
And it's not going to be somebody who just sticks their name in the hat, never comes to a meeting, never follows up.
Totally agree.
There's got to be attention to these basic things. And I could tell you horror stories about water systems that aren't paying attention to things in different areas. It's imperative that we have our eye on the ball.
Yeah. And this, once again, becomes one of those discriminators. It's one of those lines of differentiation of, ask the candidate that you're going to vote for, do you support the proxy process? Do you see this as something that we need or something that can be tossed? And it goes back to those very obvious markers of corruption. If someone says, oh yeah, I love the proxy process, it's great for harvesting votes, that should tell you something right there. If a person says the proxy process needs to go and I want to work hard to get rid of it so that we have absentee votes and we have in-person votes the way that every other major election is decided, great. Then that's a candidate that you want to support. So
folks should be asking questions. Correct me if I'm wrong. There have only been 2 that have actually answered anything officially in the local newspaper.
Yeah, that's what I've seen.
Only 2 candidates have
That's
done
what
it.
I've seen, but it comes down to, if we want transparency, then we've got to show up and demand it. If you want answers and accountability, then we, the people, have to show up and demand it. So I put it up here on the screen. This is when the election is, you mentioned it before, on Tuesday, coming up this next week, the club at Hidden Creek. It's at PJ Boulevard, so type that in. A lot of folks may not know, but look at the candidates yourself. We trust you to make the decision yourself, but look into what's really going on in your community. Take an interest, because this affects, as we've said throughout this broadcast, it affects all of us. And this proxy process is a huge, big problem. If we are going to make progress in our community, if we're going to clean this up, then we have to get up and say, you know what? I don't care how long the proxy process has been around. I don't care what people have done with it in the past. If it's wrong, it needs to go. And we need to start doing things the ethical way. You start doing that, and I think people are going to get excited and see real change. If we just do this shuffling of personalities and names of today it's this person, today it's that person, without any real discernible agenda, plan, or strategy to fix the system, then we shouldn't expect a different result. So this proxy thing is massive. And we're going to see on Tuesday just how massive it is. And the questions I'm going to be asking are, okay, who turned in the most proxies, right? Is there a big disparity from one to the other? How did that person get that many proxies? Do we know that those are all members? Were any of them pressured? How many were staff? And why couldn't they do it the old-fashioned way, the much more defensible, ethical way? And does the county actually have any teeth to be able to look into this further? Those are questions I would be asking. So what about you?
We have to vote like our life depends on it.
Yeah.
That is a mandatory thing next Tuesday. The turnout in these elections typically have been zilch.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you think about turning your tap on and there's no water, I've been in communities where our water source does not work anymore because of the bacterial contamination. Okay, so I lived in a community where we lost our water, and in fact they're still going through things. They're trying to get water out of the lake now. You have to bottle water. You can take a shower, but get have chance of lead exposure in that particular community. So this is something really important, and I would encourage any listeners to get involved in your water system. Attend the meetings. They meet on the third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. depending on whether they're going to be back, back to their building or not, or still paying rent to use another location. Attend those meetings, and let's get some good things going for our community.
Totally agree. And you're at the center of a lot of those things. So congrats again on Recall Florida.
And you've got a function going on tomorrow.
We do, yeah.
So
for Mike Matthews. So again, one of those candidates, talk to him yourself. That's the best part of Mike, is talk to him yourself. I don't really have to defend him all that much. I get to make posts and stuff celebrating him. But my favorite thing is talk to the guy. I'll give you his number. I'll give you his email. Give him a call. Get to know him. And everybody likes Mike. He's so easy to like.
And that's from 9 to 12?
Yeah, 9 to 12. So tomorrow morning, we're going to be over at Sunny Sands. Sunny Sands is an amazing place. So Travis over there at Sunny Sands on 98. He's going to be giving away free shakes and stuff. He supports Mike, supports what we're doing. So he'll be giving away shakes for the morning. Come by, meet Mike, see some of the material, get a yard sign. Talk to him about proxies. Talk to him about sunshine law. Talk to him about what are you going to do to fix the system. If you're worried about who else to vote for, he'll give you names. He'll tell you, hey, I think this guy is on my wavelength. But here's his number. Give him a call too, and see if you like him as well. So very upfront, honest guy. He'll be there for 3 hours. I'll be there. We're gonna have cornhole. I might bring my kids out, and I love those shakes, so I'm gonna get at least one, maybe a couple.
My bottom line is get involved.
Yep.
Get involved, pay attention. There's more going on than meets the eye. There's more going on than you might know.
Yeah.
You may have an expertise area that is needed. I offered to help them with grants. Well, nothing's been done because they don't want any help.
Yeah.
But we need to give them help by scrutinizing the situation and offering our expertise and our time and attention, whether it be as a board member or as a member of the Holly Navarre
Absolutely.
Water System member community. We own that system, and we have to insist that they abide by their fiduciary responsibilities.
Yeah, well said. So, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you got questions for me or got questions for Carmen, just send it on the page. You can email us at preservenavarre@gmail.com. You can give me a call. My number's on the website. Be happy to refer you if you got more stuff for me and Carmen. But we look forward to seeing you tomorrow from 9 to 12 at Sunny Sands, and then Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Vote right there at the club at Hidden Creek. Vote for candidates that support putting an end to proxies. They support sunshine law, support fair tap fees for our local businesses. God bless y'all. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time.
Transparency.
All right. Let me close this. There we go.